I've never considered myself paranoid. I'm a realist, the type who double-checks locks, but doesn't believe in ghosts. But I learned that you don't need something supernatural to feel truly unsafe. Sometimes, all it takes is a person who refuses to be seen. It started about 6 months ago when I took a job as an IT tech at a corporate data center just outside Columbus. It was one of those squat concrete buildings with no windows and way too much fluorescent lighting. The kind of place where you lose track of time and seasons. Because I was the new guy, I got the shift nobody wanted. Afternoons to midnight, Monday through Friday. I didn't mind at first. The pay was solid, and the place was usually dead after 8 p.m., which meant fewer people bothering me while I worked. My responsibilities were mostly solo, checking server health, monitoring logs, rebooting systems. The building had motion-sensitive lights, so the hallways were always dark, unless you were walking through them. It made the place feel like a maze of black tunnels. The first week went fine. The second week, though, things got weird. One night around 9:30, I was rebooting a network rack in the far corner of the server room when I heard footsteps down the main hallway. Not just the creaky sounds this place always made, but clear, deliberate steps, like someone in boots. I assumed it was security. There was one guy on shift overnight, and we sometimes overlapped. I stepped out of the server room, expecting to see him coming around the corner. Nobody. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. I walked the length of the corridor, past all 5 motion-activated lights. Each one flicked on as I passed. But I didn't see anyone. Not in the bathrooms, not in the break room, nowhere. I shrugged it off. Maybe the sound echoed weird. Concrete does that. The next night, I made it a point to check the security log. It showed nobody had entered the building since I'd swiped in. No security guard, no cleaning staff, just me. That was the first red flag. 2 days later, I was working in the break room, laptop open, eating chips from the vending machine while waiting on a long update. The break room has a wide glass door facing the lobby. Around 10:15, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. I looked up and saw someone standing just outside the glass. A man, tall. Hood pulled up. I couldn't see his face. He was backlit by the exit sign. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, watching me. My stomach dropped. I stood up fast, knocking over my chair. When I looked again, he was gone. I ran to the door and opened it. Nobody. I checked the entire lobby. All the exits were still locked. No sign of forced entry. Nothing on the security footage either. Just a small flicker in the frame at the exact time I thought I saw him. I told myself I was overtired. Still, I started keeping a small pocket knife on me, just in case. A week later, I was logging server activity in my office when I heard the hallway lights clicking on, one by one. I stared at the doorway. 5 clicks. 5 lights. Someone was walking toward me. I braced myself, waiting for them to appear. Instead, I heard a soft tap. I turned toward the glass panel beside my office door. A sticky note had been pressed to the outside. I slowly approached. It was blank. I opened the door and looked both ways down the corridor. Not a soul. That night, I didn't finish my shift. I packed up and left without looking back. The next morning, I reported it to my supervisor. He laughed it off, said maybe the janitor was messing around. I didn't find it funny. I asked if anyone else had seen anything strange lately. He paused, then said, "Not strange, just small stuff." lights flickering, doors ajar, that sort of thing. That week, I noticed more. My chair would be moved when I returned from the restroom. Files would be slightly rearranged. Once I came back to my desk and found a torn piece of printer paper on my keyboard. It had one word written on it in thick black ink. Still. I started documenting everything. Photos, times, even called the building's security company. But every time I checked the cameras, there'd be no footage. Either it cut out or recorded nothing but static. Like someone knew how to work around it. One night in December, I stayed later than usual. Big patch update, and it had to be done before morning. Around 11:30, I heard the unmistakable sound of breathing. Not mine, just behind me. I spun around. No one. But taped to the inside of my office door this time was a new note. This one read, "I'm here when you're alone." I didn't even pack up. I left the building immediately, didn't stop until I was on the freeway. That night, I barely slept. I kept imagining him, standing just outside my window, behind my shower curtain, at the foot of my bed. The next day, I went to HR, showed them the notes, the photos. They agreed to review the security system. They didn't find anything. I switched shifts, refused to stay past 6 p.m. anymore. HR didn't argue. For a while it was quiet, but 2 weeks ago, I worked late again, just one time, covering for a co-worker. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw a shape standing at the far corner near the dumpster. Same hoodie, same height, just standing. He didn't follow me that time. He didn't need to. Because this morning, when I arrived at work, broad daylight, 9 a.m., plenty of people around, I found something waiting on my keyboard. Another note. This one said, "Welcome back." And I realized something. He was never outside. He was already in. My name is Russell Grant. I live in Rochester, New York, in a quiet two-bedroom house just outside the city limits. I'm a 39-year-old widower and father to my son, Eli, who's turning 8 this summer. Since my wife passed 2 years ago, I've been trying to keep life steady, routine even. I work remotely as a night shift data coordinator for a healthcare analytics company. It's dull, but predictable. Exactly what I need. On the night of January 18th, 2024, a brutal snowstorm had settled over the area. White-out conditions, closed roads, power flickering across the county. Eli had fallen asleep by 9 p.m., curled up on the living room couch under 3 blankets with our beagle, Rusty, by his side. I was in my upstairs office, finishing up a backlog of patient logs, sipping lukewarm coffee, and watching the wind slap against the window. Around 10:45 p.m., the power blinked out for 3 seconds, then returned. I sighed, saved my work, and leaned back in my chair to stretch. That's when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks at the front door. At first I thought it was the wind, but then it came again, measured and deliberate. I glanced at the clock, confused. Nobody in their right mind would be out in a storm like this, let alone at nearly 11 p.m. I opened the camera feed from my Ring doorbell. What I saw made my chest tighten. A boy, no older than 13, stood shivering on my front step. He had no coat, just a thin hoodie soaked from the snow. His cheeks were red from the cold, and he kept glancing behind him like he was being chased. I activated the speaker and asked, "Are you okay?" His voice cracked. "Can I come in?" I got lost. My brother left me at the gas station, and I've been walking for hours. I can't feel my hands. My first instinct was skepticism. You don't just walk for hours in sub-zero temperatures and end up at my door. But his breathing was rapid and visible. He looked genuinely terrified. I hesitated, but the father in me took over. I ran downstairs, turned on the porch light, and opened the door. The kid stumbled in, nearly falling. I caught him by the shoulder. His skin was ice cold. I closed the door and locked it. The storm howled outside like a warning. I wrapped him in a blanket, helped him sit by the fireplace, and gave him a mug of hot water. He barely touched it, just kept rocking slightly, mumbling something about being followed. "Who left you?" I asked. "My brother. He said I was slowing him down." Then these guys in a truck started driving real slow behind me. They didn't say anything, just followed. That chilled me more than the wind. I got him to calm down, told him he was safe here. Eli was still asleep, thankfully. I checked the cameras again. Nothing unusual. But 10 minutes later, it happened. A bang on the back door. It was subtle at first, then louder. I froze. The back door wasn't visible from the front of the house. No camera there. I told the boy to stay put and walked cautiously through the kitchen, heart pounding. I peeked through the blinds. 3 figures, all wearing masks. One held something heavy, maybe a crowbar. I backed away slowly, whispering to myself not to panic. My phone. I left it on the desk upstairs. As I turned to head back, the boy, this fragile, frozen kid, was suddenly standing behind me. But his face was different. There was no fear anymore. Just calm. Calculated calm. "You should open the door," he said. His voice had changed. Deeper. Older. I blinked in confusion. My chest tightened. "What?" He stepped closer. "They don't like waiting." I sprinted past him, ignoring his sudden burst of laughter. It didn't sound like a kid anymore. It echoed strangely in the hallway, too deep to match his small frame. I made it upstairs and slammed the office door shut. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. While I waited, I turned on the upstairs camera feed. The back door was wide open now. Snow was blowing into the kitchen. The boy was gone. I heard slow, deliberate footsteps on the stairs. Rusty barked downstairs. Then a yelp. Silence. I locked myself in with Eli, who was now awake and crying. I whispered for him to stay quiet, not to move. The 911 operator stayed on the line, promising officers were only minutes away. A shadow passed outside the door. Then, 3 knocks. Slow. Mocking. They didn't try to break the door down, just stood there. I could hear them whispering, low, raspy voices, not speaking English. Then, nothing. By the time the police arrived, the house was empty. The back door showed signs of forced entry. Footprints everywhere. But no one was found. Not even the boy. He had vanished, as if he'd never existed. The officers told me something odd. Several homes in the area had reported similar incidents over the past year. A child or a teen shows up during a snowstorm or power outage. Then, a coordinated invasion. Sometimes they take everything, sometimes nothing. Sometimes people are never seen again. All I know is, since that night, I've never opened my door past 9 p.m. Not for anyone. And if you hear knocking in the middle of a snowstorm, even if it sounds like a child begging for help, don't open the door. I'm not gonna lie. When I signed up to deliver pizzas, I figured the worst I'd have to deal with was bad tips and potholes. But what happened last fall still keeps me up at night. I was working for a small place called Carmelo's Pizza in a quiet Ohio town. Family-owned, friendly regulars, nothing out of the ordinary. I worked evenings, mostly Friday through Monday. I'm 25, took the job to make ends meet while I studied for cybersecurity certifications. Seemed like a temporary thing. It started on a Sunday night in mid-October. I remember because the Browns had just lost, and half the town was grumpy. The rush was winding down, and I got one last order around 9:30 p.m. 2 cheese pizzas, garlic knots, and a bottle of soda. Pretty basic. The address? 319 Redwood Street. Now, Redwood's not far from the downtown area, but that side of town is older. Homes from the 50s, most needing repair. Street lights are dim or flickering. I'd delivered there a couple of times before, but never to that house. I drove up, parked outside. The house was small, tucked between 2 larger ones. The porch light was off, but the front room had a warm yellow glow, so I figured someone was home. I knocked once. No answer. Then I noticed the door slowly creak open, just a few inches. No one appeared, but I heard a voice say, "Leave it on the step." Sounded like a woman, maybe mid-30s. I didn't see her, but I said, "Sure," placed the boxes down, and waited a second to see if she'd come out to grab them. Nothing. As I turned back toward my car, the porch light clicked on. I glanced back, startled, but still, no one. The light just flicked on by itself. Weird, but I left. Back at the shop, I saw the receipt. Paid online, generous tip. $10. I remember thinking, nice. Next night, same time, same order, same address. That's when I started to get the first weird chill. I took it out again, this time a bit more curious. Drove slower, parked out front. Again, the porch light was off. I walked up, knocked once, nothing. I called out, "Carmelo's," same voice. "Leave it on the step." Again, no one visible. I crouched to place the food, but this time, I heard a faint sound, something like whispering. Very soft, like more than one voice behind the door. I couldn't make out the words. Then I noticed the house next door. Someone was watching from the window. A shadow pulled back the curtain just as I glanced over. I stood there longer this time, pretending to mess with the receipt. The door never opened. The light never came on. But as I walked back to my car, I heard something behind me. Footsteps on wood. I spun around. No one. I left fast that night. Tuesday, day off. I tried to shake the feeling, told myself it was just my imagination. But on Wednesday night, around 10:15, I was washing trays in the back when I heard my co-worker shout, "Hey, another one for your ghost house." I froze. "Redwood again?" He nodded. "Same order." I hesitated. I thought about asking someone else to take it. But curiosity got the better of me. This time, I decided I'd get a look inside that house. I got there, parked one house down, left my car running. As I approached the porch, I saw the pizza boxes from 2 nights ago. Still there, untouched, now soggy from rain. That's when my skin crawled. I knocked harder this time. No response. The door creaked open, just a crack. "Leave it on the step." Same voice. I crouched, but this time I placed the boxes down slowly, scanning through the crack in the door. What I saw chilled my blood. Inside was dim, but I could make out dozens of pizza boxes stacked high, some still unopened. The smell of rotting food hit me. I whispered, "Ma'am, are you okay?" Silence. Then the door closed fast, with a sudden slam. No footsteps, just slam. I ran back to the car. As I pulled away, I saw the house next door again. Curtain moved. Someone watching. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something was wrong. I went online, looked up 319 Redwood. That's when I found it. 10 years ago, a woman named Evelyn Porter lived there. She had schizophrenia, lived alone, refused help. The city tried wellness checks, but she always refused to answer the door. They found her body inside after neighbors complained of smell. She'd been dead over a week, surrounded by unopened pizza boxes. She used to order them nightly. I nearly dropped my phone. I told my boss about it. He said the system shouldn't have accepted the order. The card used was expired. Somehow it went through. We flagged the address, refused future orders. But a week later, I got a call on my personal phone. Unknown number. I answered. The voice? Leave it on the step. I hung up, blocked the number, checked with the phone company. No record of the call. Next night, my car alarm went off at 3 a.m. I looked outside. There, sitting on my porch, a pizza box, Carmelo's label. No order had gone out that night. Inside the box, a note. You forgot the garlic knots.